Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Get Into It with Gila. I'm Gila Glassberg, your host, registered dietitian and intuitive eating counselor. And today I have on Dr. Marcy Forta. Hi, Dr. Marcy. How are you?
Hi, Gila. How are you? Always nice to talk to you.
Yes, I'm so happy to have you on for the second time. So we're definitely going to link the last episode in the show notes so people could listen there. But I want you to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself. Where do you live? What do you do? And we'll go from there.
Sure. Thank you. I actually live in Michigan. So we're a big small community. I guess I would call it that way. And I am the founder and director of Atzmi, which is a nonprofit that I founded to help programs for our adolescent girls that improve their self-compassion, self-worth, body image. We provide skills and tools to support their mental health, but also to empirically prevent eating disorders. Part of what we do is provide workshops for parents, as well as seminars and trainings for teachers. And I provide a lot of support and guidance for loved ones of adolescents struggling with an eating disorder. And recently, I was Baruch Hashem, fortunate to have published a book through Mosaica Publishing. How can I help my daughter? A Mother's Guide to Nurturing Her Daughter's Best Self.
Beautiful, amazing. Okay, so as we were saying a little bit before we started recording, we did a podcast maybe like a year and a half to even 2 years ago. I don't remember. I have to look at the dates. But we've been in touch a lot in the last like year. You know, I taught nutrition last year to high school, and you really helped me and guided me. And I even taught your curriculum to my students, which was amazing. And actually very reinforcing to me because that's where my disordered eating began in 11th grade. So 10th grade, 11th
Wow.
grade. Yeah. So it was like, they say like nurturing your inner child. For me, it was like, wow, if only, if only I had that
Wow. Well,
when I
you
was
didn't
a
need a
student.
lot of help. You knew what to do. You just, I think, were a little nervous because it was the first time, but you did great. I was very
Thank
impressed
you.
with your curriculum.
Thank you so much. Um, so tell us a little bit about the book. How did it come to be? How was the process of writing it and how has it been received so far?
Yeah, I didn't think about writing a book, to be honest with you. Mosaica, actually, one of the publishers or people there reached out to me and felt like, this could be an important book, kind of talking about what it is we do. And I gave it a lot of thought. It took a little bit of time till I really built up the courage to try and do it because I think what's important about a book to me or sharing anything, because this I kind of to me is like an emotional guide or a guide to raising emotionally healthy daughters. And it's based on not only empirical data, but I wanted it to be based on my personal story on Torah and Hashkafa and all the stories that people have shared with me and entrusted me with about struggles with their own family members. Could be daughters, could be sons, could be sisters, mothers, things like that. So it was it was a little hard. I'm a little private. It was a little hard for me to start because I knew that I wanted people to understand that I come from a very empathetic place because I struggled with my own eating disorder. Um, but at the same time, sometimes it's hard for you to talk about. So once I got through that chapter, to be honest with you, and I was able to kind of put pen to paper and share that, the rest of it was really based on a lot of the seminars that I give to moms, just with a lot more detail and a lot more examples and things that I've seen personally, to kind of help us. So it wasn't actually that hard to write once I got started after the first chapter, but it's a long process. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It's on my to-do list, my book. So
yeah, I would very much buy and read that. So,
okay, thank you. So what I was going to ask you before, which is coming back to me now, is that since we last spoke, so you wrote this amazing book, which I'm so excited to read because I love personal stories. I'm sure you've heard many personal stories in the last few years. So when did you start Atzmi? When was it founded?
I founded the organization in 2020.
Okay.
And that was the year that I started to create the curriculum. I had already done all the training and all the other prevention programs. I had, finished my doctorate, just researching what the unique risk factor considerations are for a frum girl for eating disorders and other struggles. And so it took about a year to create the curriculum, to test the curriculum, to refine the curriculum, create the journals and the seminars. Yeah, and so in 2021, we started to slowly introduce it to schools, but last year, truly, so it's really in 2022 almost. Last year truly was our first full school year where we offered it to schools. And again, because of October 7th, we got started
Yes.
a little bit late. But thank God we had really great feedback from everyone, the girls, the facilitators, the moms, the teachers. It was very gratifying to hear how the girls felt about it, and the moms as well.
Yeah. So you started it in 2020 around, and you're still in it, the like last year, 2 years ago, you started to implement it. So now, I guess since we last spoke, that was like more like the beginning stages, and now you're a little bit ahead of that. So what's changed since we last spoke? Like, did you have to tweak the curriculum? Was there anything shocking to you? Um, yeah, just fill me in on that.
So I think, well, there's a couple things. One is I have been very pleasantly not surprised, but kind of happy to know that the From world really does want to do anything that is possible to help with mental health as well as academic achievement in the schools. It is important to them. They are concerned. They are wanting to help the girls. Sometimes they're not ready yet to implement a curriculum such as this. It's a little bit harder sometimes to start a new program, to feel comfortable with that. So, I think based on the school, based on the principal, based on the people who are involved, it can be a different experience at every place. But overall, truly, when you get to the right people and you can talk about the curriculum and you can show it to them, and you can explain how it works and why it works, the vast majority of the time, they're on board to do it. And now I used to be the one who was reaching out to the schools, but it became, with the other things that I'm doing, too hard. So now I do have a person in place who is really my outreach coordinator and reaches out to the schools and all that, because there's a lot of pieces. So
Yeah, 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 I understand. So, your outreach coordinator reaches out to, how does that work? Like, how does that process work? Is it that are any schools reaching out to you at this point? Are people like looking for this, or are you?
yeah. So we are getting some people who've said, we've heard about it. Can you give us information? I'd like to set up some time to speak with you. It definitely goes both ways. We have a contact form. We get a lot of things via the website. Um, and we also reach out to the schools that way. And so usually they'll set up an initial meeting with me and we'll talk it through and I'll show them some of the curriculum. And then of course I'll give the school the curriculum to look over, because obviously no school is going to feel comfortable to give a curriculum to their students that they don't feel 100% comfortable with. So we give them complete access to the journals, the PowerPoint that the teacher uses, all the teacher's notes. And I have training videos that I give the facilitators, because somebody in the school will be teaching it to their students. I help them pick the right person to teach the curriculum or the workshop with the girls. And then we give them time to go through it, make sure they feel totally comfortable. I
Yeah.
like to book the parent, the mother. So some schools it's parents they like me to speak to. Some schools it's just mothers. So whatever the school prefers is fine with me. We booked the seminar. I like that to be first, simply because we want them to have awareness of some of the new tools and skills that we'll be giving the girls, and we don't want them to really, we're starting to ignite a fire. So we really don't want them to put that fire out without inadvertently realizing that they could actually help reinforce some of these really important concepts with their daughters. And we like to do a teacher training as well to make sure there's safe spaces in the classroom, that they don't, weight bias, weight stigma is completely unallowed, certain types of comments. And then of course they should know the signs and symptoms if they're concerned that a student is struggling,
Hmm.
signs and symptoms, what should I do? So things like that.
Amazing. I have a better understanding now that I did teach the curriculum and see the curriculum, and I love that you give it to the school before to review. And from my perspective, um, I think that a lot of schools are looking for the exact information that you're giving, meaning they're like, I've been contacted to speak in schools locally, and even for traveling, like in the tri-state area, not farther than that. Actually, somebody wanted to ask me to speak in Texas, but I didn't. But I think that people really want information about eating disorders and eating disorder awareness and eating disorder prevention, but I don't think they really know what that means, because there's still that lack of knowledge, that we could be, I don't want to say causing an eating disorder, but definitely be reinforcing eating disorder behaviors just by our normal, typical dieting culture that people are so, unaware of. So I think that, I wonder if you're noticing that, like, like I said, the information really resonated with me, and this is something that I do like on a daily basis. For those people who don't do it on a daily basis, do you find that they were after they see the curriculum, there's a little bit of pushback still because they're so not, maybe not educated on this.
Yeah, I think that's the key. You're right, 100%. It's education. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding in our community about what is an eating disorder. Um, a lot of times people think it's a bad choice and someone
Right.
brought that on themselves and just
Right.
eat and just stop doing those negative behaviors and you'll be fine. They don't really
Yeah.
understand the mental health complications, manifestations. So that is the hard part. The education piece is so important, which is why talking to parents and talking to educators in schools is key to getting this in the classroom. Once they hear about it, again, you can't force parents to come to a seminar. So
Right.
I find like a lot of the parents who come to the seminar are the ones who are aware that maybe they should be talking differently or that they're seeing struggles with their child. And it doesn't need to be an eating disorder struggle for it to be a struggle. Like you said, it could be disordered eating, body image struggles. Those are pretty universal. Obviously, an eating disorder is one level, but you don't have to get to an eating disorder to struggle with
Right.
your body and your shape and your size.
Right.
So the parents that I see face to face tend to be parents who are open to the concept of this. I have had schools that have told me that certain parents absolutely forbid to have their children come to the classroom when we have this curriculum or workshop. But that's the exception, not the rule. And it was interesting to me because in my day and age, and I don't like to say that as like an old person, but if you send your child to a school, you trusted that school, the philosophy of the school, the teachers, the way they do things, that was part of you being a partner with the school, was that you
Hmm.
were going to support them in their decisions and how to educate your child. Certainly you could come to them if you had a concern. But
Hmm.
nowadays, sometimes it's just like the parents are like, absolutely not. You will not be doing this to my child while we are in your school. And that's a little incredulous to me. But that
Why
was
wouldn't they give me some information? Why wouldn't they want you don't know? Why wouldn't they
I think
want
there
them
was
to
some
hear
of it
this?
was maybe, they said this is a conversation that I will only have with my daughter. No one else should be having it with my child. Which,
Okay.
listen, I'm all for you having that conversation with your daughter in a healthy, productive way. We don't
Yeah.
always know how to do that, which is why I wrote the book and why I have the companion. I want to
Yeah.
help support you through that conversation. Definitely, you should have a dialogue with your daughter.
Hmm.
But also, some sects might be like, if it's not based completely on the teachings of our Rebbe, from beginning to end, then it can't be applied to our community. But again, that's really, really the exception, not the rule. The vast majority of people have been excited, thrilled, really appreciative of the fact that something like this is out there because they see the struggle day in and day out. I would say the biggest comment that I get, that if other than the complimentary ones, the biggest thing that people ask for is that this program or something like this should start in the younger grades. We do 8th, 10th, and 12th for
Yeah.
very specific empirical reasons. And the cognitive dissonance kind of that we create, that empirical piece that we're working through, by doing it, is not really doable in the younger grades, but it doesn't mean that they shouldn't have some type of a program. The type that I have created doesn't work for that, but some schools have asked if we could create something for younger kids,
Hmm.
which is part of why I do the teacher training and the mother training, because the younger kids are very influenced by their parents,
Yeah.
and the teacher has a big influence on what she allows to go on in the classroom.
Right.
But I'm not saying that it couldn't be valuable. It's just not something that we've done yet.
Right, right. No, I hear that as somebody who has a child younger than 8th grade and who this is like so like it's like my life's mission on the one hand, and on the other hand, as somebody who did teach last year, I do respect the teachers so much more. Like just like you said, besides for what they have to do as a teacher, they also are making a major they do have a major impact and influence on these children. So it's like it's a big responsibility and it's a big topic that's hard to not only teach but really like implement, so
Absolutely.
yeah, so I think it's like such an important thing that you're doing. And the book, so I guess what came to mind for me is like the book that you wrote. um is it meant to complement the curriculum or is it meant to stand alone? Like what was your vision for it once you wrote it?
It really is a standalone kind of a book that a mother could read. And I give a lot of suggestions of how we can help our daughters cultivate a more positive relationship with themselves and their body. We know that self-image is so closely tied to body image. Small changes, big changes. I think the most important thing is to remember that small changes have a very big effect. And
Hmm.
um, learning new things is learning new things. I don't like guilt or shame. I don't think it's constructive. I don't think it helps us move forward. The idea
Yes.
is to help us just implement some new things whenever we feel ready and comfortable to do that, and be more conscious
Hmm.
about the things that we're saying to our child and children and the messages that we are giving them. So it's really hopefully a positive support in a lot of ways.
And the stories that you included in the book were these stories of people who, like, real life stories that people shared?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, obviously names
Yeah.
and any identifying information was changed, but the stories are all true stories that people shared with me about experiences that they had with their child. And so, and these are all in the From community, and they were all within about a year and a half. I since the book was turned in like last August, so
Wow.
I have news stories obviously since then because
Yeah.
it's been another year, but those were the most compelling ones that people shared with me that I felt, that people would really want to hear about.
Were any of those stories shocking to you?
Gosh, many of them were shocking to me. One particular one was a girl who came back from seminary and shared that she had gained weight in seminary, and her mom said to her, when you're our family is a size 2. When you're back to our family size, we'll go shopping. That's always one that sticks out in my mind because I don't actually think the mom was trying to be negative. I think she was
Right.
thinking that this was the way to motivate her daughter to change her body. I don't think she realized the negative long-term implications that this would have in her daughter's psyche about her value as a person. And so these kinds of things, and also stories about doctors not realizing that a child is actually really struggling with an eating disorder, misdiagnosing, sending the mom out saying she's fine, it's just part of puberty, it's just part of adolescence. And then the daughter is terribly coming back, a short time later with a more significant eating disorder that has affected them physically, their heart, their liver, their kidneys, or electrolyte imbalances, whatever that is, and they're needing to be hospitalized, and they're so deep into the eating disorder that it's harder now to bring them out. But yeah, there's a lot of I think powerful stories that people have shared.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Parents, going through a divorce and the daughter uh, getting an eating disorder from the stress. I just think a lot of ways to wake us up to realize that A, it's not our fault when something like
Right.
this happens,
Right.
but B, we do need to open our eyes and see things as they happen right away so that we can get the help that our children need if they need it. But there are
Mm-hmm.
also things we can do to offset it as well. And so, working in that, can I say that I can guarantee you if you do all these things, your daughter won't have an eating disorder? I can't say that.
Right.
Uh, because there's a high genetic predisposition. There are other factors outside the family unit, but this is a great place to build resilience for your child. I think it's important for parents to realize that we can't fix everything for our children. That's not our job. And even though it's painful for us to watch our children ever be in pain, sometimes a parent will say to me, well, how do I get her to feel okay? A parent recently, just last week, called me and said that, her daughter was getting married and she has a lot of girls. And one of her other, not the daughter who's getting married, is in a larger body and she feels very uncomfortable getting dressed and buying a gown. Like, what can she say to her to make her feel okay? And there isn't really anything that you can say in that moment that will perfectly dissolve all her feelings about her physical appearance. What
Right.
we want to do over time is give her strategies and coping tools and skills so that she can have resilience when she faces hardships in life, because this is part of life. You
Right.
can't We can't follow our kids around forever and fix everything for them. But when we give them strength and when we validate their feelings and help them deal with their emotions, that's how we help them in the best possible way.
Right. Right.
And
That's
modeling good
beautiful.
behavior, of course.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. It's interesting that you're saying that because, like, as a dietitian, like, for number one, interesting, like, Dina Cohen, she's a dietitian in Lakewood, very well known eating disorder dietitian. And so I started my practice, I want to say, like, 6 years ago, and I consulted with her a lot, and she gave me a lot of chizuk and ideas. But one of the most important thing that she said to me that I still kind of remind her about is that she says, when I was nervous, like, how am I going to counsel people? And we don't really have counseling skills as dietitians, and it's kind of like learn on the job. And she was like, you really, like, one of them, like, I don't want to say the only thing that you need, but one of the only things that you need as somebody who counsels people is, like, empathy and compassion and a safe space to share their feelings, which I was like, what? I'm not a therapist, and I'm not a therapist, but you're just highlighting a really important piece of all of this, is that, like, the therapist, the parent, we're not, like, really changing the scenario so much. We're not like going to make that person, diet culture would say just make the person skinnier. Just tell the person you look great, don't worry about it. Tomorrow I'll start your diet. And I think that's why dieting is so compelling, right? It's like I don't feel good today, but tomorrow I could feel better if I don't eat XYZ, which isn't true. So I think that really that's probably like the most important piece for people to understand, whether it's eating disorders, body image, or anything that's going on for us or our children, is that like we can't always change what's going on. I guess that's part of like just like
Yeah.
being a person, like being okay, or you could say being a Jew is like we don't always control everything. And I think in 2024, we believe that we could, like if we
Yeah.
tried hard enough, or if we did enough research, or if we, looked through the internet enough, there would be that answer. And I think that a lot of what you're doing, and a lot of what I guess like I'm trying to do also, is that like just to show people like sometimes things really are out of our control, and we can still be okay, or we
Hmm.
can still feel whatever we're feeling. Um, and that could be okay
That's
too.
normal. It's
Yeah.
normal, it's expected. Everyone goes through it at one point or another. I think there is just really healthy safety almost in numbers, knowing that other people, when you realize you're not the only one going through this, I think sometimes we feel like an island, even though logically we know, of course, I'm not the only one. But when
Hmm.
we really internalize that piece of the self-compassion puzzle, that we are one of many and that everyone is struggling just like we are, and we're not perfect, we're not meant to be perfect. We're giving them that sense right away early on. And it doesn't mean that you don't care about anything else. It just means it gives you perspective, because what we've learned from that kind of perspective is it increases people's motivation and the ability to care for themselves properly and to get up and dust themselves off and try something again. So, the resilience is very important in all things, and kind of just helping your child on that journey as a parent, not only with the words that you say, but also in the way you model your own behaviors in your home,
Hmm.
makes a very, very big difference.
Right. I was gonna also say in terms of like that story that you shared, like I've had clients tell me things like, my parents told me I can't go to seminary unless I lose X amount of pounds. And when I share that story, people like their jaws drop. I'm like, that's like I'm just like scratching the surface. So I think that all the things that I share and the posts that I post and things where people are like, nah, those are like the extreme cases. I'm like, no, they're really not the extreme cases. This is what people actually go through, and actually really negatively affects them and really negatively affects their self-worth. And it doesn't really have to be like that. But what you're I think pointing out is that it's not just that like one-time conversation of like, trying to help your child. It's like the overall attitude in the home. And let's just say the mother isn't feeling good in her skin, or she is dieting. That's something really important to look at. It doesn't mean that you're going to snap your fingers and then all of a sudden love your body, but it does mean that like if you work on your own relationship with food and your body, that is really positive modeling for your child, and that's like the best thing that you could do, really.
Yeah. And what mother wouldn't do that for their child? You know what I'm saying? We might not be
Right.
willing to do it for ourselves, but if we
Right.
thought that we could help our child in any way, of course we're going to do it. And
Right.
I just don't think they're always, like you were saying in some of these comments, and people are like, oh, that's the extreme case. I think sometimes we are so normalized. These conversations are so normalized in our communities and
Yeah.
cultures that we don't even hear when people say that anymore. But for some
Yeah.
people, that they internalize that in such a deep place that they can't get past it. Do you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
they're so stuck in that piece. So and I think people with a need, like for me, it was a specific comment that I remember feeling like, okay, no one is ever going to make a comment to me when I came back from camp and I had gained weight and I was like, I don't know, 14, and I was humiliated. It was in front of our whole family and whatever. And I was like, okay, that will never happen to me again. And I don't think that person meant it in a horrible way,
Right.
but that's how I took it. So sometimes we say something and we think, oh, it's not even that big of a deal.
Yeah.
How somebody else takes it and what it means to that person is very different to each person. You have to be so sensitive to that.
Right. Right. Actually, I was recently somewhere, I won't say where, but I was recently somewhere, and a few women were discussing having, I'm really not judging. I'm trying not to sound too judgmental. I hope I'm not. But they were talking about having liposuction and a tummy tuck, and they were talking about it openly. Like there's women around having this conversation, and I was just like, oh my, like, and you know what? Maybe they medically needed something, and I was just being judgmental. But I'm not trying to be judgmental. I really was just thinking like, wow, like we've come to a place where there's like no embarrassment. It's just like, I don't like my stomach. I want to have a medical procedure to, make it smaller. And I'm just
Yeah.
going to talk about this as if it's like talking about buying milk at the grocery store, And I was just like, that's sad. I feel so bad. That's what I was thinking. I feel so bad that that's what this has come to. But like other people who are listening are probably not thinking that. They're probably thinking like, maybe I should get liposuction or tummy tuck.
Yeah. Why
And
haven't I thought of that myself
yeah,
before?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I was just like, wow, that's really sad. Like that's like really something that I hope to
Same
one
with
day.
facelifts or injections. Listen,
Yeah,
I'm not judging, like you said, everyone can
yeah,
do whatever they're
yeah,
comfortable with.
right.
But to normalize it, I think in some ways they want to normalize it so that they don't feel like they're the odd man out. Like this really is a normal thing to do. I'm not
Yeah,
weird because I want to do it.
right,
But it does compel other people sometimes to feel like, oh, I guess I should be doing this.
right,
Um, and so as an individual, I just don't like the pressure that it creates on other people.
right.
Everyone should do what they want to do,
Yeah,
but you're creating pressure in the community in that kind of a conversation, like, oh, geez, maybe I should be getting these injections or getting a tummy tuck or whatever it is,
right,
because
right.
I never thought about it before. But listen, everyone's doing it. It's just like the norm.
Yeah, and I actually will just say, like, honestly, like it did make me feel kind of bad about myself. Like my non-logical brain, like my emotional brain was like, my emotional self was like, ugh, like what's wrong with me, And even though like the logical, like that, and the reason why I'm able to combat that is like all the stuff that I constantly do. But somebody who isn't constantly doing that, it's just like they probably don't even, recognize how disordered
Yeah.
that is. And again, I'm not judging anybody who does the weight loss medication, does liposuction, does Ozempic. I'm really not. And I had this conversation with clients all the time that like this is my sessions and your book and everything are a safe space to talk about anything that's going on for you genuinely. Um,
Genuinely.
genuinely. But at the same time, it's like I guess just the education piece of like you might be feeling like this because it's become so normalized for you and like it doesn't have to be, even though it's really
Correct.
hard to swim
Right.
upstream. That's what I feel like on a constant basis when people ask me about Ozempic and people ask me what about they need to lose weight for medical reasons. The child is to eat the child, right? And it's just like I know why you're thinking that, but it's like you know,
Hard to separate though. It's very hard to create that space for somebody because of the fact that it's just. I always compare it to like a fishbowl. We're swimming in the same water. We're hearing the same messages. So
right,
how can we stand up, step out, jump out of the water and kind of think for ourselves about what actually serves me? How does this affect myself? How does this affect my family, my children?
yeah,
Um, it's really hard though. There's no, like you said, there's absolutely no judgment,
yeah,
but all we want to do is create a space where you're doing what you're doing for your reasons and not because everyone else told you to or people made you feel bad about yourself. I was at a convention recently and a young girl came up to me. She couldn't even talk. She started crying. She said, I'm going to take your number and I'm going to call you later. And she called me and she said, every time I go home, the first thing my parents say to me is, what diet are you on? When are you going to lose the weight? Like, what
right,
are you doing to lose your weight? And she's like,
mhm,
I just feel like so bad about myself all the time. She said, and I've tried every diet and I have starved myself and I've done everything. And I felt so broken for her because I feel bad for her parents because they don't realize what they're doing, I don't think. And I feel bad for her because that's all she hears from them. And even if it's not the only thing they're saying, that's all she's hearing. So
right,
it breaks my heart when we don't take a moment to step out and like compliment people on their abilities, capabilities, talents, skills, mitos, all the other wonderful things that make up somebody. Our
mhm,
appearance is such a small part of who we are truly. And
yeah,
when we focus so much on that message that externals matter so much to us, then the true logical message that we know, especially as from people that our relationship with Hashem, fulfilling mitzvahs, just doing what we're meant to be doing, being kind, chesed, whatever that is lost on our girls
yeah.
because we're saying one thing but doing another.
Right, right. It's true. It's very sad. Actually, you're reminding me that I actually realized like probably haven't like recorded a podcast all summer. It's been such a busy summer, but this whole summer I was going to a parenting class, a teen parenting class actually, and it was great, excellent. And she actually said she was going to talk about food, and I was like, "Oh no, what's she going to say?" But I was so happy with what she said.
Oh,
Um yeah, but like I guess on the topic of food and everything really, she was saying that like a kid has to feel like loved and accepted for who they are, right? And like the more we nag and nitpick and try to change, I mean we know this like about our husbands, so it's like kind of the same with our kids, especially our
yeah.
teens, right? And they just feel so unloved and so unworthy. And I think that's like, again, like I'm not a therapist, but I guess like you can't really separate the two. And something that I am always coaching parents on is that like a child outside of the home who's bullied for their weight or for their grades or for whatever, it always hurts, it like always really stings. But if they feel like unconditional love and acceptance at home for who they truly are, it just doesn't go in as much, it doesn't penetrate as much. And those children who are getting the same at home, even though of course it's not meant in a negative way, the parent really is genuinely trying to help, they just feel so broken. And that's where, when you said before about like self-image and body image, it's like if you hate yourself because nobody loves you, I mean everybody loves you, but nobody's showing acceptance for who you truly are, then
Mhm.
yeah, like a slight insult about your body size will be like huge to you, because it's like it's your everything, it's all connected. So
Exactly.
it's just
And
really
even
important.
even when doctors or parents, tell a child, you need to lose weight, they don't hear, okay, I have a struggle, and they're asking them to do that. What they hear is, I'm a horrible person, I'm unworthy, I'm disgusting. That's
Right.
what they're hearing. So the conversation has to be a little bit different. The way we have to approach it, and talking to the doctor, and maybe talking to your doctor privately about your child's body size. We have to be so careful because we are such an influence in how a child feels about themselves. It's very easy for a child to take a message, and that is what they see the rest of their life, or influences them for so many years. And so
Right.
I agree with you. We have such a power to build them up in a way, because then those other messages that they're going to hear from other places, that's the resilience we were talking about. It really serves them in every area of their life.
Right. And like you said before about the story that you shared about the mom and the one daughter getting married and the other daughter feeling poorly in their body, just to continue on that thought, is that like the answer isn't in like that one conversation, the answer really is in like all of the conversations that we collectively have with our children. So you're not like, don't despair, but like now today is the day to start on like positive body image and not body bashing your own body, and talking positively about your body. Even if you don't love the way your body looks, you could love what your body has done for you, just the fact that you got out of bed today and felt the
Hmm.
warmth of the sun on your face.
Hmm.
I know that's how I'm feeling today about the weather.
Yeah.
And if the more like what we focus on is what our kids know is important to us, so it's like if we could we could still be feeling all those feelings of negativity in our body because that is genuine, but we could also be modeling like, I might not love the way my body looks, but I love my body, or I will respect my body, or I will feed my body, or I will, take care of my body and your body. And, like, again, like just to show that like body, the way that we look is such a tiny part of us. It doesn't mean that we should neglect ourselves, but just like highlight somebody else's whatever talents or relationship to Hashem or whatever. And the more highlight all those other things, the more that your kids realize like, oh wow, like the way my body looks isn't that important. And you know, kids, I have a daughter, and I only have one daughter. I have three boys, but it's starting so young, and it's just it's I don't want to like I never want to scare moms. Like I always say, like don't be afraid, like empower yourself, because it is starting young and there are things that we could do. But it's like really, really, really important that it's like on the forefront of our mind, because there's so much coming at them.
So much coming at them, and the peer pressure is real. The messages that they get, not even, sometimes they'll talk to different groups, and they won't feel like there's social media perhaps in their sect, whether it is or isn't. I'm not having that, conversation, but we have it in our From magazines. We have it
Right,
in,
right.
you go into From clothing stores, and what do mannequins look like, and what are all
Yeah.
the sizes that they're highlighting, or you go to your grandparents' house, and what are they saying? It's everywhere. And so we just have to be ready for it. And I think part of what's really hard for kids like that is more that, why do I look different than my siblings? Why am I
Yeah.
the one who has to have the larger body or be in a different size body? And part of that resilience in realizing that we are all different, and that's what makes us unique and special, that Hashem created us differently,
Right.
that we do look different, different eyes, different hair, different height, different shoe size. And and no one looks alike, in the
Right.
world, maybe
Right.
twins, whatever. But um, I think part of that is that as well, and the body image talk, but just realizing that we're not all meant to look the same in
Right.
any way. So
Right. Right.
um but all these conversations can be had. And like you said, you can start them at any time.
Right.
Certainly, it's great to start them when they're very young, but start them whenever you can start them. It makes a difference.
Yeah, and I want to like end on a positive note. Is there like you shared like a sad story, but is there like a story that you could share maybe in your own life or that people have shared that your work had a positive effect on them or that somebody made a change or a child was affected positively by a mother's change of tone or something, anything that you could think of?
Yeah, there are many positive Baruch Hashem stories. There was one young girl who had quite a significant eating disorder, but the parents were so, like, it happened very quickly, but they were so dedicated to their daughter and they got her help like very quickly, and within a few months they were really able to turn it around, and we worked together and she changed everything about how she talks about food in the home, how she talks about everyone's bodies, or making comments, or sitting and eating with her children herself and making sure she's eating the food that she's feeding them. She was so dedicated to her daughter, and it made like just a massive, massive change. But really, I do pre and post surveys for the workshops as well. And a lot of the feedback from the girls are, thank you so much for showing me that I have beauty in places that aren't physical, or that, my soul has more value, or whatever that looks like for each girl, but thanking us for just knowledge of dealing with their emotions, or how to invest in themselves, or understanding their boundaries in life. So thank God we've had amazing feedback from mothers and even facilitators saying that they were so happy to have done this for their own children and for their own self and for their family. Like, they feel privileged to have done it. Even though they're teaching it to the girls, it made a
Yeah.
huge change in their life as well. So definitely, and it's not so long. It's 4 sessions in eighth, 4 and 10th, 4 and 12th. We don't need a year-long curriculum that's going to disrupt the school schedule. It's really very doable
Hmm.
in a short period, and little changes have very, very, very big effects.
Yeah, and I love the journals. I love the journals. They're
Oh,
just
thank
so
you.
easy to have around and to work on. And even after the 4 weeks, like the girls could refer back to it and it's beautiful to look at. And it was done so, so, so well. So
Thank you. Thank you very much.
um
Appreciate it.
I,
Thank you
I
as
will just
well.
tell you a story
Sure.
that a previous client shared with me that I thought that I shared on my Instagram. Um that she recently reached out to me that she made a wedding, and she was so happy that she realized that during the wedding prep she wasn't focusing on I need to lose weight for the wedding. She was focusing on the fact that her child is getting married, which is like something that I really try so hard to work on with clients because it comes up all the time when somebody is going to a sibling's wedding or a child's bar mitzvah or whatever. It's like the first thing they think of, how sad is that, the first thing they think of is what am I going to wear.
Hmm.
And again, I totally understand that feeling. And
Yeah.
I've been there
Yeah.
I have a lot of siblings and a lot of siblings weddings and everybody's looking at you. It's hard. On the other hand, it's like, what is the simcha? What is the event? Is it that your child's getting married? Is it that your sibling's getting married? And how do you want to reflect on that in a year or two or five? And then think about the wedding of your loved one, right? So it's like just that was such a win. Like, so I just wanted to share that with you.
I
And
love that. I
yeah,
love that. I mean, how it just shows you that your work is so needed and important and valuable to so many people. I think even just sometimes knowledge, like you were talking about education, having an understanding, it makes you catch yourself sometimes,
yeah,
even asking that question. And even if it's a day where you can only ask that question to yourself, you're not ready to entertain it, and you're not there, you're still going in the right trajectory. And it's a journey. We're not always at the end of the journey. We're always in that journey.
yeah.
But yeah, how gratifying was that? That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, it's amazing. Okay, so where could the listeners find you if they wanted to reach out to have you at their school or your curriculum or you come to speak or buy the book? Let's hear all of
Yeah,
that.
I would be thrilled. I'm always happy to go to schools to speak, to have speaking engagements or questions about the curriculum. They can email me directly, Marcy, Marcy, at Atzmi, ATZMI.org. They can go through our website, atzmi.org. We have a contact page, and I get those emails as well. And you can learn more about the curriculum, the book, the mother-daughter curriculum that we've created for mothers and daughters to kind of work together to have some of the conversations that are difficult to have in a kind of guided, safe way. And so, yeah, I'm always happy to speak to new people.
Amazing. Okay, thank you so much for coming on again, and it's always a
Thank you,
pleasure to
Gila.
speak to you. Have a great
Yeah,
day.
I think everything that you do, I follow you very closely, and I really enjoy everything that you say. And I've even sent a couple people to you who could do
Thank
virtual
you.
because here I am in Michigan, but
Yeah, Yeah.
Yeah, I think you
Thank
do
you.
very important work. So
Thank you
thank
so
you so
much.
much for
I
having me.
feel mutually, and I'm so glad that we were able to connect.
Thank you, Gila.
Goodbye.